Dave, is the camera still working? It's been such a long time.
We are live.
All right. The April 25th, 2023 meeting of the Dexter Township Planning Commission will now come to order. Especially for the benefit of anybody watching on live stream and just to verify quorum, I will introduce the members of the Planning Commission. I'm Marty Straub. My left, your right is Maris Metz, Chandra Hurd, Alicia Abbott, Bob Nestor, Christy Mayer, and Tom Lewis. So we obviously constitute a quorum this evening. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item on our agenda is conflict of interest review. Does any member have conflict with any of our agenda items tonight? Which would seem kind of odd with the content of tonight's agenda. All right, seeing none. Item 4, approval of the agenda. David and I were speaking about this prior to the meeting, and according to our bylaws, at the first regular meeting of the year, we shall select from its membership a chair, vice chair, or secretary, and shall recommend from its membership a representative to the Zoning Board of Appeals. So unless there's an objection, I would like to add that to 6.1, that when we do elections of officers, we will also make a recommendation to the Township Board with the ZBA rep. Any objection? At 6:02, we're open for public comment. We have no public here, so we will close public comment. Item 6, action items. Number 1, election of Planning Commission Chair, Vice Chair, Secretary, and recommend to the Township Board the ZBA rep. So presently, I am Chair, Bob is Vice Chair, Tom is Secretary, and I am also the Planning Commission's rep to Zoning Board of Appeals. What would this group like to do for this year?
I hope to stay the course.
I'll second.
Moved by Mayor, supported by, was that Metz?
Yep.
Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor say yes.
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 All opposed say no. Motion's carried. Our big agenda item, number 2, discussion of the work plan for review of the 2023 Dexter Township Draft Master Plan, which should have been received by everyone. And we'll turn it over at this point to Mr. Rohr.
Good evening, everybody. Long time no see. Welcome, Alicia, first meeting. So, was everybody able to open the digital link to the master plan? Everybody have a hard copy as well? Mm-hmm. Okay. So right now, the master plan is solely in the Planning Commission's purview. It's your document, so it's the Planning Commission's document to review and make a formal recommendation to the Township Board. The way that our consultant has spaced it out in terms of the Planning Commission's time to review it, we have 2 meetings following this. We have the May 23rd meeting and the June 27th meeting to review, provide comments, produce a new draft document or amendments or changes, and then recommend that one way or other to the board. At which point, it will actually then go to a public comment period. So we'll have an open, about 60 to 90 days of open comment. We'll have a couple of public engagement venues, one here at the Township Hall and potentially one at some other venue. Our main charge right now is to basically review this document, find any issues or comments or questions, and basically develop a work plan so that we can kind of go through this systematically over the next 2 meetings. I will have the consultant here. They are Beckett and Rader. I will have them here for the next meeting to help to answer any questions, clarify any points. We also have a couple members of the steering committee, Maris and Marty, who are obviously on the PC, so they've seen this document and are pretty familiar with it. So what I'd like to do is to set up a work plan, and I'd like to consolidate it, so to speak. So what I'd like to do is kind of solicit everybody's comments or feedback over the next couple of weeks, at least our initial round, directly to me, and let me provide then a single document to return to the Planning Commission, so we can, at our next meeting, we can make sure that we're getting to everybody's concerns, comments, issues, and we can go through them kind of methodically, and we can go through the document. I'd like to avoid as much I don't want to have too much I don't think duplication is a word, but redundancy. So I'd like to avoid, if Christy and Marty both have the same questions about something on page 29, I'd like to consolidate so we can just address that once. So, but really, this is your document. This is kind of your process. This is your work plan. So by all means, I'd love to hear your thoughts or ideas, anything to make this process go as seamlessly as we can.
Has there been many changes, major changes, based on the contractor to put it together?
So the consultant in our last committee meeting, which was the last Monday in March, is that correct? Yeah. So we did have some changes, not significant. Marty provided some good edits. We had a couple of them.
And by good, he
Yeah.
means mainly like, it was a communist place, you know.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of it was just cleaning up and having a few tweaks here and there, but no substantial changes to the document. The steering committee met for a year, and they went through every section 1 month at a time. So there was lots of opportunity to address issues, catch things as we are going through the process. So the document that you're seeing now is pretty much unchanged with some tweaks from what the steering committee saw last month. So, but again, it's not to say that there aren't issues with it or there aren't things that people will find or have questions about, but that's why it's in the Planning Commission's hands now.
And you'll see from some of the survey responses, you may compare and contrast with the last master plan, but most of I guess I'd say the body of it is really aligned with the survey responses. And I don't recall now, but there was pretty decent response from the survey, or similar in terms of numbers of people who responded, I think quite similar to the last master plan.
Yeah, the last survey from 2011 and the survey had similar percentages of people who responded, and there weren't. I mean, this is obviously a new document, but it's not a radical departure from what we saw in 2011, and that's why we used similar survey questions and a similar survey methodology, so we could really see where we were, 12 years ago to see where we are today. So.
The most recent data that was in here looked like it was from the last census.
Yeah, the 2020 census data, and I believe they were able to pull some of the American Community Survey data from 2022 as well. But yeah, most of the data is from the 2020 census.
Is there new SIMCOG information?
SEMCOG will provide the American Community Survey, which is our snapshots, and those are done kind of annually, every other year. But usually since they're so close to the 2020 census, that forms a lot of the basis for what the consultant used.
Question, and this would be more for the members of the steering committee. When I looked at this and I did a side-by-side comparison to the 2011 plan, on the surface, it does look a lot different to me. It's not that classic of goals, objectives, strategies in the implementation plan.
True.
The background and history is great. It's very solid and it's very honest. Like there's some honest statements like, wow, I'm glad they said that because it's true. And so I really appreciate that. The implementation section to me is set up a little bit differently, and looking at it side by side, to me, I can see where some of those differences are. But when you talked about the implementation, did you find some common themes that maybe you struggled with or had heavier discussions on?
I wouldn't say there were a lot of heavy discussions, but there were some things that, there was a pretty good, I think, cross-section of input. There were some sustainability issues that were discussed. You know, some things like that that may have been new since whatever that was, like 12 or so years ago. But as far as the layout goes, there was some discussion early on that our previous document, which, you know, was great for graphs and maps and figures and that, it was, I'm not sure I would say there was a consensus because I don't think there was a lot of discussion about it, but it was noted that as a reference document for people that are thinking about moving into Dexter Township, investing in Dexter Township, that it may have been kind of cumbersome to get through what is it all about. So I think this document, partially maybe from those comments, but perhaps mostly because of the way this consultant handles it, I think that would be, in my view, more streamlined. I appreciate that you're actually a for real professional in this area, and I would defer to your judgment whether that's good or bad.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, just my general observations looking through this, you know, on page 65, there's a small little square that calls out the master plan themes. It's so small, I missed it first time. I feel like these are 5 major themes that the implementation portion of this plan really touches on, and it's just in this little square. And there are 5, and they're talked about on these color pages, 5 color pages. And when you get to the implementation action plan at the end, it only calls out 4 in that section. It's missing like the land use. Now I know the land use is kind of in here between the 4 color pages or the 5 color pages, which discuss the cornerstone and the building blocks of each theme. But then when you get to the action plan, it leaves out the land use. That was one, just observation. Second observation is the old plan does have a component that includes education, like really educating the public as we continue to move forward and have development pressure and land preservation. I don't see any education component in here at all. And that was key almost in every single section of the old plan. I would like to see something about that. I do really overall like the layout. I think the third point, the use of the future land use zones, I think that gets really, will confuse people with zoning. I don't know if there's a way to use a different term, whether it's categories or classes or something other than zones. But the first time I saw that and saw an actual conservation subdivision and that being zone 3 and a color called out, I thought, well, there must be some strategies that's gonna maybe implement something where subdivisions could go there, whether it's allowing for the transition of agricultural zone land to a rural residential to allow for, you know, more subdivision layout. And I was anticipating some strategies about that, and then there wasn't anything about that. So I think there could be some more work done in the back about the action plan and how it relates to land use. And I love that the consultants, or maybe the steering committee, used the term tug of war a couple of times in here, that we are in a township that has this tug of war between building pressure and our view sheds, and how we want to be inclusive of housing and maybe different types of housing types with accessory dwellings. But we also don't always like the look of subdivisions, even though we're preserving land, you know, open space. That clustered look says high density to people, and they don't like it. They don't like it when they're looking at the view shed across the field. They see that cluster. So there is that tug of war going on in a lot of ways, wanting to have housing out here but still be in a rural setting. So I think there could be some discussion over the next couple of weeks about a little bit more land use. When I look at future development on page 69, I see a paragraph that addresses commercial. I see a paragraph that addresses income. And then I see a little bit paragraph regarding maybe income and working, but then the building blocks, there's only 3. And it's like, well, what are we really saying here with future development? You know, it doesn't, to me, say what that cornerstone and what the building blocks truly are. So those are just my initial observations, you know, just nothing to really hammer out here. I think that's going to be a part of the public process moving forward, too.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. It's all good stuff. Anyone else have any comments at this point? So David, your thought is that we'll meet in, see, this is April, May, and June for the Planning Commission.
We will.
And maybe, so the first meeting in May would be after what, oh, scratch that, because I think did some other committee take up the Planning Commission's traditional planning?
Local Roads has the second Tuesday
Okay.
of the month now.
I was going to ask if we needed to pull one of our, the devil did we even call those?
We used to have, they were almost like, what did we call them? Working session
Or whatever. It was like the planning meeting, but the planning, you know, every meeting of the Planning Commission you would think would be a planning meeting. It might have been the working session.
Yeah.
But, that time has been taken up, so
Yeah.
the next point or question is moved.
Yeah, I would, what I would like to see is, Chandra did a great job of starting off, is setting a date, maybe 2 weeks out, where everybody can get me all of their comments, their questions, their noting which section, which page, and then I can compile those into a single document. I can return those to the Planning Commission. I can also provide those to the consultant so they can be aware of what's going on. So when they're here at our May meeting, we can basically treat that meeting as a working session. We can spend the entire time going through this document, reviewing this, so we have a really good idea of what, you know, needs to be changed, or what we'd like to see changed, or what additions we'd like to see. And the consultant is a great resource because they can give some additional background, or what their thought process was, or what kind of best practices, anything that they can provide. If we feel we need to have an additional work session in June, I think we can schedule something before our regularly scheduled meeting.
Okay.
But I mean, I would be in favor of just going forward with our regular Planning Commission meeting in May and treating it again. If we need to spend 2 or 3 hours going over it, then that's the time we need to spend going over it. So.
And just to be clear to the public, so what we are intending to do is each of us will send our comments, whatever points we want to make, to Mr. Rohr. You will simply compile those, maybe reword them to combine, you know, 2 similar issues into 1 issue.
Sure.
But those will come back to us in their entirety, back to the public meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So no, You know, we're not slicing and dicing in the background, not passing judgment. It'll just be a more efficient way than, you know, each of us trying to throw out our comments. We'll have a list that we can go through in the next meeting then.
Yeah. And I'd like, just because it would help me, and I'm sure it would help everybody else, I'd like to have a deadline that you'll have everything.
Yeah, good.
Planning commissioners would have, and if it's not, if it seems reasonable to everyone tonight, I would think by May 9th, which is 2 weeks from tonight, I could have everything, everybody could have their comments, their questions into me. I can turn that around relatively quickly within a day or two, send back a compiled document to the planning commission, get our consultant a copy as well, and we can all then be working off of the same document for the meeting a little less than 2 weeks later.
Does that work for everybody? Anybody have an issue with that?
I just had a question about the process, because since Maris and you sat in on the steering committee, would it be worthwhile to run things by them? Like, we get it to you, you compile it, then you run it by them first before you run it by the rest of us? Because there's some, like, I flagged things when I went through it, like a sentence of, it's important to encourage development to meet the changing needs and preferences of the community. Is that, to me, that's sort of an overstatement? Like, do we really want to encourage development? Because I feel like a lot of times
Yeah,
these
we
meetings, we're not anti-development, but we
Sure.
don't want to, I feel like the preservation of open spaces and agricultural land outweighs the desire for development. So something like that, if you run it by Maris and Marty first, might weed out some,
Yeah, I would,
like, we've already talked about this and we don't need to catch it up.
I would prefer to not do that
That's
because mainly this is the planning commission's document. The master plan steering committee really only served the function of trying to help guide the consultant through the process to get out the surveys. You know, what are the questions, especially as they may relate to the previous questions, so we can try to determine, is there a shift in attitude on something? And it was really navigating through that process and providing some guidance. There were no decisions made, no votes taken, so while each of us may have had a thing that we were interested in and asked about, whether or not that showed up in here, I guess I couldn't pick out a particular instance, but this is Planning Commission's document now, and that kind of ad hoc committee served a very narrow purpose, and it really did not have anything to do with the content of the document. It was the process about how the document was developed. I mean, David, you have a different view on that?
No, I agree 100%, Christie, and like your comment, that the planning commission should look at that. Everybody should look at that. So I definitely don't want to filter, do a narrow filter. I want, if somebody has a question or an issue or a concern, the planning commission, every planning commissioner should weigh in on it. We should all see, because the steering committee, again, we had somewhat of a narrow focus where there are things that we missed, or there were things that maybe are not phrased quite right. So by all means, make note of that. Yeah.
That makes sense, thank you.
Do you have anything else on that issue? Hearing none, let us move to item 7, approval of planning commission minutes from May 24th, 2022. And it's especially wonderful that Ms. Miller takes such thorough and accurate minutes, because I don't remember what I had for breakfast today. So it's it'd be a son of a gun to try to dredge all this up from memory. Anybody have any, I have a couple of things, but I'd rather hear from everybody else if there are any issues, corrections. If not, I will jump right in. One is and I'm embarrassed to be that person, but I guess I own it. So on page 2, about halfway down, where it says section 14 enforcement, second line, it really ought to be apostrophe SM consultant. So consultants, apostrophe, charge. And the only other thing I had was at the very end, adjournment. Meeting adjourned at 6:68 PM. I don't know, I'm guessing it was probably 6:58, but, you know, Janice, maybe you can check that on the tape or something. All I know for sure is it was not 6:68. It could have been almost anything else, and I couldn't verify one way or the other.
We go for 60 minutes in an hour.
It probably seemed to you like it was 6:68, but it really, it was faster than that.
I have a comment on the first page, the very last line. The sentence is about state of Michigan funds available to support the purchase of the development rights. And I don't know if it's supposed to be purchase of development rights or purchase of the development rights.
Oh, yeah. You support the purchase, the development rights, yeah, so, yeah, probably support the purchase of development rights. Anybody else have anything? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes as amended, the informal amendments.
I'll second.
Moved by Nestor, support by Mayor. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed, please say no. Motion carried, and the minutes are approved. Item number 8, for the next hour, we will have Township Treasurer Metz bring us up to date on what's happened in the past year.
Oh my gosh, yeah, a lot has happened in the last year, and as Marty said, it would probably take me a few good hours to update everybody on everything we've done. But I'm going to keep it short tonight, just the update of something very important that has occurred within the Township Board. Supervisor Rakovich made a difficult decision to resign her position last month. During our April 18th board meeting, we accepted her resignation and also discussed plans to move forward and what that looked like for us. It was quite a bit of discussion and a mixed variety of opinions, but we finally came to the conclusion that we would open it to the public. We are keeping this vacancy open to the public to apply, any interested candidates to apply until May 3rd at 4:30. I just want to make sure that I have all of these dates correct. Yes, and any interested resident should submit a resume or a letter of interest to the attention of our Executive Administrator, Abby Norsworthy. Any additional information, interested residents can call the township and speak to any of the elected officials, the executives, or Abby. And so the board has also set a special meeting, and that's going to be held on Sunday, May 7th at 6 p.m. to publicly interview candidates. And it's our hope to decide upon and appoint a new supervisor at our regularly scheduled board meeting on May 16th. So we are going to miss Supervisor Rakovich very much, and we appreciate her leadership, and we hope that we find a really good fit.
Do you have specific criteria you guys are looking for based on applicants? You don't have that option during the voting process.
No, but see, the thing is that, I mean, one of the trustees requested that we have references, that they, people come with references and a letter of interest. I mean, we're hoping that it would be somebody that has some type of experience in this department, but, I mean, it's hard to find. So, I mean, we're not looking for any specific criteria, but, I mean, experience would be nice. And we did, I don't know if everybody got an email blast, but we were supposed to put an email out to every sitting board member. Did anybody get an email on the Planning Commission?
I think I did.
Okay. We were supposed to do that, so I will look into that and get that out to everybody, because we want to look, internally too, and make sure that everybody is aware that this vacancy is open.
So that does not then preclude someone from in-house
No.
applying for the position?
Nope, it doesn't eliminate it, but that actually was the policy that the board set forward on the meeting prior to that, is that they wanted to, what the board made a policy to do is to look in-house first, and then if there was nobody interested, to open it then up to the public. But, we then ultimately decided it would be better to open it to the public, and everybody included first and foremost, and then if there aren't any interested candidates, that we would look internally. And that is as a sitting board. Mm-hmm.
Do you have any other questions on that? Anything else for your report? That's the,
I'm going to stick to that tonight, yeah. And I'll go back to my regularly scheduled,
no, that's fine. Whatever you want to bring to us, is much appreciated, but,
Is there anything specific that you guys would like from me in the updates?
I was just going to say, just kind of general significant actions that the board may have taken, or anything that the board has expressed, which would typically be through their resolutions, that would be guidance for us, for example.
Yeah.
And I think, beyond that, interesting tidbits.
Okay.
But I don't, it's been kind of a free-form thing, whatever you care to bring.
Okay. Great.
Wasn't there, the North Lake, I was sitting in one of the BOT meetings,
Mhm.
and did they know that development, they were adding to the language, that the township would be held harmless over the odors because they're next to the multi-lake?
Yeah, we asked to include that right in the development agreement about the odors near Multi-Lake with the new development, the nature preserve. So yes, thank you, Alicia. Yep, that did happen.
Anything else? Questions, comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
Brings us to concerns of Planning Commission members, Director of Planning and Zoning, Township Supervisor, Recording Secretary. Let's kind of go around the table, I guess. Mr. Lewis?
Nothing.
Ms. Mayor?
Thank you.
Mr. Nestor?
Yeah, I have something.
Bob, could I ask you to speak into the microphone? We can't hear you.
Sure.
I mean, you can slide it up near you.
That's all right. I apologize. It's something that I was thinking of bringing up to the board at some point, but that's not happening. I don't know if this is the correct form of it. There is a committee that is, I think maybe Mark Teicher is on it for the roads,
Local Roads Committee?
local roads committee. Is Mark on that?
Marcus, well,
I believe he was. He's no longer on the committee.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
I'm the chair.
You are, okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, then I can bring it up to you.
You certainly may.
There are a number of trees along the North Territorial corridor that are dead or dying. Several of them fell down not long ago, but there are a ton of them that are just hanging over the road. And I know we've had at least one fatality on North Territorial as a result of that. And I don't know, it's the road commission's responsibility, I would suspect. I just don't know what criteria they use for determining which ones are going to take care of. But from Schaefer Road all the way along, you can just drive along and count the number of trees that are hanging over there, they're cracked and broken, there's holes all the way to the bottom, and they are going to come down sooner, not later. And it really concerns me because that could really be a fatality just waiting to happen. And that corridor in particular, there are other places, but in the most recent storm we had, that took care of a few of them, but there's still many that are just perilously hanging over the road.
Do you think, are they in the easement?
Yeah. Yes.
Because it is the responsibility of the road commission, if there's dead or fallen trees, to take care of them. But they also make a caveat on their website that it is as resources and time allow.
Right.
and they don't, I understand that they are slow to get around to this, so.
Yeah, well, clearly you can tell that by looking at the trees.
Yeah.
They're just, many of them are just barely hanging on. And that, you know, a biker could be going by, a bicycler, it's just, to me, that is just a severe accident waiting to happen, because these are big trees.
Yeah, and I guess I don't understand, I mean, it makes sense to me, because that was one thing I read in the draft plan about tree canopy and planting trees, and I feel like Right Tree has been cutting trees on Huron River Drive since January. They're almost, they come, they go, they come back, they cut more. And I don't know why DTE and the Road Commission can't hook up together and like get Right to just cut trees when they're out, because they're out here all the time, it
Yeah.
seems like to me.
Yeah, let's
And they
clear the
could
right
take
of way.
care of that.
Yeah.
Because we had trees cut last year before they did the work on Huron River. There was a totally separate contractor, they did a nice job, but they're using separate contractors, and it seems like it's something they could combine.
Yeah, that's
Which
interesting.
does seem very good,
Yeah.
yes.
But yeah, they don't, I know it is, and a lot of times, like, you know, I'm on a dirt road, it's not very heavily traveled, and a lot of times people just cut the trees themselves. I think people carry saws and cut them.
Right.
Especially if they fall in the road,
Yeah,
they cut
they
it
do,
away.
and they do, no
Yeah,
damage
it's
to
a
that.
problem.
But it's the larger, primarily oak trees that just simply live their life, and it's limbs that you can't get to, and they're hanging, and because of the way they trim the trees for the power lines, they're hanging right over top of the road, the limb is dead as can be.
Yeah, I've noticed a couple of big oak trees along Madden Road
Yeah.
that fit that description, but yeah, I appreciate your comments about territorial. It's heavily traveled.
Very heavily, and it's just, you know, it's just a matter of circumstance. When the weather or the conditions, and typically what happens for a lot of these trees is after, well, for one thing, when the ground gets saturated, they can easily tip over because there's nothing holding it there anymore. That's one thing, that usually happens in the spring. But the other thing that happens, if they are dead and dying and they get what's left of the limb gets a big leaf burden, and then they fill up with water, you give a little bit of a breeze, they're coming down. They will be coming down. So it's, and I know that was their policy is as time permits, or as resources are available or something. But you know, you put them on notice that this clearly is a problem and needs to be addressed. At least it's out there in writing and we've addressed it, we've made a point of it, and we try to be responsible stewards.
Okay, I will take up, I'll talk to Karen, who's the trustee who's on our committee, and then we can decide, talk to them, who we should talk to with the road commission, and see if we can nudge them some.
So the township board meeting last Tuesday night, they had invited a couple of reps from DTE, and the board had various questions, and trustee Lonnie Scott did a really fine, and I thought thorough job of asking them pointed questions that, you know, my little opinion, they didn't really answer. It was kind of the script about, you know, how hard they're working, how many millions of dollars in investment they put into Dexter Township in the past. I think it was 10 years, 12 years, something like that. But he had some very, very good and very specific questions that they didn't really address. Perhaps we should expect that there will be a follow-up. I don't know that came out of that, or if DTE went away thinking that they are obligated to answer those questions. Those just kind of hung out there. But yeah, I really appreciate that the township board was taking that up on all of our behalf. Anything else?
No, thank you.
Ms. Abbott, and I should have welcomed you at the beginning of the meeting instead of at the end of the meeting.
It's all right.
But welcome to the Planning Commission, and if there's anything you'd care to share about yourself or ask about.
I'm just really excited to be here.
Do you want to bring the microphone closer so we can hear you?
Okay,
I don't
yeah.
think these are turned on either, so.
Well, mine is green, so
Is
does that make
is
sense?
it shiny green or
Turn
just?
on.
reflecting green.
Okay.
Hit the button
Hit the
just for
button.
grins and see if it gets
Oh,
greener.
no.
No,
No.
sorry.
So is it on? You can hear me now? Okay.
Yeah,
All
you're
right.
still sleeping.
Yeah.
I'm excited to be here. I've been attending the Board of Trustee meetings for quite some time. But I'm really excited to be here. I'm too new to have any major concerns, so I'll just pass the question on to Ms. Hart.
I have no concerns.
Ms. Metz?
I have a lot of concerns, but
Yeah. You know, we've got plenty of time. I really don't want to rush you through your
No, I no
report, your
concern.
concerns.
no, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Ms. Miller?
None. Welcome back.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. We've missed you.
Missed all of you too.
Mr. Rohr?
No concerns, but just a heads up. So part of the scope of services for our consultant is a zoning ordinance review. So after this master plan comes off your plate, we will be starting to tinker with the zoning ordinance a little bit based on some of their recommendations. And our zoning ordinance, our new one, is approaching 3 years old now, which is a pretty new ordinance, but there are definitely some amendments that are necessary. So we'll plan on meeting again over the summer and over the fall, and we will have some additions, some more fun stuff to discuss.
So, a question for you, if you could offer an opinion, or maybe you're going to have facts. Zoning Board of Appeals has not met very much over the past couple of years. Some of that obviously is due to COVID. Some of it is due to fewer housing starts, perhaps, maybe related to COVID. But I'm wondering how much of that might be because what we still call the new zoning ordinance has eliminated the necessity of some of the typical, mostly around lakes type issues, encroachment on property lines. If somebody, wants to do something even simple like modifying a porch or something. Any feel or facts that would tell us whether that's mostly, partly, not at all related to the new zoning ordinance?
Good question. Really hard to quantify, actually. I think in part, the new zoning ordinance has eliminated some of our old culprits that the ZBA used to see. But how much the new zoning ordinance has really changed the game is still a good question. I mean, I think COVID really changed the historical trajectory of development and building here. I think we're also we've been building pretty furiously on the lakes for 2 decades. Some of it is we are hitting kind of a max out for building. I know there's a number of houses that have not started because of COVID, because of cost, shortages of materials, workers. But yeah, that's a good question. It's I definitely would give the new zoning ordinance some credit, but to give it all of the credit for how things have slowed down, I think it's affected the Planning Commission's schedule too. I think it's affected development. I think we're still in kind of a post-COVID slowdown, and I don't know what the arc is going to be kind of once things get back to normal, if they ever get back to normal. So, that being said, there are obviously, I'm sure everybody here has 1 or 2 things in the zoning ordinance that bothers them or doesn't seem quite coherent, or so there are definitely no zoning ordinance should go 5, 6, 7 years without amendments, because things change and we realize things. So we'll definitely have some things for you to consider over the next 6 months.
All right, thank you. At 6:44, our second public comment, and just note that there is still no public in attendance. Next agenda item, future agenda items. Mr. Rohr, anything that you haven't already covered?
No, outside of our meeting next month. The meeting in June, hopefully we'll be wrapping up, making a recommendation, and we will actually have a text amendment proposal that came from the ZBA in March. So I'm putting it off till June just because I don't want to overload us in May, but we will have a text amendment to consider at our June meeting.
All right, good, thank you. Anybody have anything else?
Just a quick question. What were those future meeting dates again? I missed that.
Oh, you mean for the PC?
For
So,
us, yeah.
yep, so May 23rd and June 27th. And if we potentially need to do a working session somewhere in between those, we can decide that at the next planning commission meeting. If we feel like we need more time with this master plan, we can schedule it.
Thank you.
If there is no more business, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Mayor, support by who?
Tom.
Support by Lewis. All those in favor, please say yes.
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 All those opposed, no. Motion carried, meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
May 23rd meeting, we'll go
Oh, no, I think probably not, huh?
Just noticed we're like dressed like twins almost.
I know.
tonight.
I know. I'm like, okay.
You have us
So
clear, Janice?
now we know there's a uniform.